For this Preppin data, we've been looking at making sure our data is in the right shape for Tableau Pulse. So let's take a look at the steps applied here. So we've got our transaction data here, where we've got a row for each of those transactions on different transaction dates. There we go, it's just loaded up for us there. And the first thing we can probably notice about this data set is that this transaction date is spelled out in a bit too much English and a bit too many words. It's a string field, in other words. So we want to change that to be a data type, a date data type. So if I go to the data types menu, then I can just change that to be a date. And Tableau is pretty smart at recognizing consistent date formatting and changing that into a date data type, as we have here. So wonderful, we can see now in the kind of data grid at the bottom that we've got all of those coming through as dates, which is wonderful. And because we have that as a date field now, we can actually do our filtering for only keeping dates in 2023 and 2024. So let's take a look at that. So I chose to do a filter and to do a relative dates filter, similar to how we do it in Tableau Desktop, so that it's always kind of updating relative to where we are in the year. So I'll select relative dates there, and I want the last 2 years here, so you can see how it's saying the dates in this particular range, and we can anchor that to today. That's kind of how that is by default. As you can see, I'm recording this a little bit before the 6th of March, which is where we're hoping to anchor that to in our challenge. So let me just change that to the 6th of March there, and you can see that we have those dates like so. Now that hasn't actually changed anything. It's still keeping all of 2023, all of 2024, but our latest date is the 6th of March in this data set. So I would leave this on today, really, if I were, hoping to keep this up to date for Pulse, to keep it relevant to my data. So that's what I would do there. And in fact, that is what I have done in the next step. So now that we've worked to get that to only the most recent data, now we want to actually work out the gaps in the data that we have. So we want a complete data set. So we add in a new rows step. So if we go to our little plus button, that's the second step option down. And we're taking just the values from one field, our transaction date field, and we want to go from the minimum to the maximum of this data set, and we want it to create new rows based on that. So we know that the stores in this data set are closed on Sundays and bank holidays, so that makes sense why we're getting all these additional rows coming through. We don't want to touch this increment. We want it to be a day, a new row for each day, and we're just making sure to change this from 0 or null to just the null value there for our new rows. The reason here, we don't really want there to be a sales value of 0, because that kind of maybe implies that the store was open but didn't make any sales that day. We want to have a null there to say, okay, there was no way that sales could have happened on this day. Cool, so that's all the date fixing done. Let's take a look at those product IDs. So if I come back to this step here, take a look at those product IDs, we can see that they're a mix of the product type, so whether it's a bar or liquid soap, the scent of that product, so in this case we've got cedarwood forest there, and then the size of that product, so whether it's 4 bars of soap or 0.25 litres of liquid soap, that sort of thing. So we can just split these out from one another. I chose to do a custom split just so I can specify that it's definitely just the dash that we want to split out, and we want to split all fields out there, and then we hit split and it creates for us with these 3 new fields. So let's go find those in our data set. There they are. Product ID split 1, product ID split 2, product ID split 3. And so we just rename those to be product type, product scent and product size. And then we're good with that. Although we notice our product scent still has these underscores within it. So let's write a quick calculation to clean up those underscores, replace the mistakes with spaces. So this is the function that I wrote there, just to replace product scent underscore with a space. And now that's looking much cleaner and much more human readable, which is great. So then the only thing left to do is to translate our 1s and 2s in cash and card to be the 1 is a card, so we just can double click in there, write the word card. Although at the moment that won't work because our field is a numeric data type, so we'd have to change this first to be a string, and then we can go ahead and double click in there and overwrite those values, which is how I've done it. Or you can write a calculated field. Either or is absolutely fine there. So we've got card and cash there. So now we're ready to make a join onto the product table. Let's take a quick look there. So we've got that product type, product sent, but then we've got this slight discrepancy between pack size or product size, and we can tell that that is based on our product type. So bars have this pack size, product size links to the liquid. So basically we can merge these two columns together. So if I pick up the pack size, drop it on top of the product size, then that will mean that those two columns, we just overwrite the nulls. We have them, all those details in the same field now, but for those different product types. Wonderful. And then if we join those two data sets together, we need to make sure that we're joining on all three of those fields. So the product sent, type and size. And we want to make sure that we're doing a left join if we have our transactions table on the left here, so that all those rows still stay in that we added to complete our data set. So all of these that are unmatched, we can see that these are all the ones who don't have a transaction number or product type, etc. We don't want to lose those rows because we went to all that effort to put them in. So we want to make sure that we're keeping those in with a left join there. And then we can work out our quantity. So our quantity is simply defined as being the sales before discount divided by the selling price. And when I did this, I had a little bit of irregularity here where I've got 3 3s, so I just made sure to change this number type from a decimal to a whole number to get rid of that as well. It's probably just a bit of rounding error, a bit of floating point error that computers often have, so no need to worry about that. And then our loyalty table is our final table that we want to bring in. So we can see we've got some issues going on here with the loyalty tier of bronze. Someone missed off the E a couple of times. Gold is definitely spelt wrong a few times, and silver is also spelt wrong. One of those says slither. We can see our customer names, last name, first name, we want to fix that. And then our loyalty discount, although human readable, aren't going to be very useful in calculations at the moment. So let's go and fix all those issues. So for our customer name, we're going to use that split functionality again. Split it based on the space this time. So we create these two new fields for the last name and the first name. I found it immensely useful to then rename these from split 1 and split 2 to the last name and the first name, just so that then the calculation was much more simple to write. It's just the first name plus a space and then the last name, and wrapping that in a proper function so that it does a title case for us as well. So that customer name becomes a lot easier to read than the customer name before that. For the tier group, we're going to use the grouping functionality in Tableau Prep. So if we group that, I use pronunciation, but common characters wouldn't work in all cases. Spelling would probably also work really well as well. So we've done that grouping, we've got everything all replaced. We don't need to worry about the fact that we've got nulls somewhere. Those customers just haven't reached kind of bronze status yet. They have to make a certain number of purchases before they become bronze tier customers. And then for our discount fix, I went with removing the punctuation to get rid of those percentage signs, turning it into a number, decimal, and then divided by 100. So removing the punctuation, changing it to a numeric field, and then dividing it by 100 using a calculation. Lovely. Now we're ready to join on. So again, not every transaction has a loyalty number, so we want to make sure that we're doing a left join here so all of our transactions stay in this data set. So we're still maintaining those 39,337 rows. And then Now we're ready to calculate our discounted sales, so our sales after discount has been applied. So that's just the sales before discount times by 1 minus the loyalty discount, so that they're having their what do I mean there? Their savings are being applied. That's what I mean there. There we go. So we can see, for example, this customer is in the bronze tier here, so their £14.70 sales become £13 pounds and 96.5p. We won't worry about the fact that it's 3 decimal places there, but their loyalty discount is basically being applied. That number is less. That looks like it's working at a quick glance, which is good. And all that we need to do now is calculate our profit and clean up our field names, and we have prepared our data ready for Pulse. So let's look at the profit there. So we need to round. We're wrapping this in a round function for the profit. I don't know why we didn't do that for the sales after discount, but we could definitely do that. We're doing our sales after discount minus the unit cost times by the quantity, and that will give us our profit. And then we can get rid of the unit cost and selling price. They're not important in our analysis that we'll be doing with our Pulse data set. And then in order to tidy up all these field names, to get them from having all these underscores in, then we can use this rename fields option at the top here. And that allows us to dynamically rename fields. So we're going to replace text, we're going to replace the underscore with a space. So you can see how it highlights the underscore and says, I'm going to get rid of this character. And then we put a space in and it highlights in blue where it's put all those new spaces, which is beautiful and magical. And we could even tick this automatically rename new fields here, so that anytime any new field gets created that has an underscore in it, it will get replaced with a space. And we can just rename, and it's as simple as that, which is wonderful, rather than having to go rename all those 14 fields by ourselves. And then our data is ready to output. So if we weren't working within Prep, we could just output it as a CSV as normal. But if we're in Prep itself, we can publish our data source. So I only have access to a Tableau server currently. I could kind of sign into a Tableau Cloud account, but I haven't set that up prior to today. But then I could select the project and run the flow, and then that would be all done. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you learned a little bit more about what your data needs to look like for Tableau Pulse. So thanks very much for watching.